Today I'm going to show you how to make sausage rolls, and before you prepare the ingredients you need to organise your equipment. So to make sausage rolls you will need a red chopping board to roll out your sausage meat, a rolling pin to roll the pastry, a mixing bowl, a tablespoon which is 15 millilitres, a pastry brush to glaze the egg onto the pastry, a fork, a blunt knife, a flour dredger and a jug, and also a baking tray with baking parchment. To make the sausage rolls you will need these ingredients. You will need plain flour to make the pastry, butter, sausage meat, or you can use sausages, but if you do use sausages you need to remove the skin, 1 egg to glaze the pastry, and cold water to seal the pastry. I'm now going to make the shortcrust pastry. So I have my plain flour and I'm going to take my cold butter and cube it. So it's breaking it up nice and small. It's important to have cold equipment and cold butter, because the heat of your hands when you use the rubbing in method is going to be quite hot. So the butter is already melting from the heat of my hands. So I'm now going to use my fingertips and try and rub in the butter into the flour without the flour and butter touching my palm of the hands. So I'm going to use my fingertips and rub the butter and flour in between my fingertips. So it's like this. And using the rubbing in method, butter will coat the flour granules. And once all the flour and butter is rubbed in together, it should resemble breadcrumbs. If it doesn't, then you need to keep rubbing it, the flour and butter together. And a great technique, if you shake the bowl, all the lumps come to the top, and then all the flour is at the bottom. So then you can rub those lumps into the flour. And now you need to clean your hands. So now my plain flour and butter has been rubbed in together, it now resembles breadcrumbs. So I now need to add the water to bind the dry ingredients together to make a dough. Do not use your hands for this. I'm going to use a blunt knife to stir the cold water into the breadcrumb mixture. So you should use about 2 tablespoons of water. Be careful, you don't want to make your dough soggy. So I'm now going to use my blunt knife and stir. And I still have lots of breadcrumbs at the edge, so I know I need more water. You do not want your mixture to be too dry or too wet. It needs to be a nice firm ball of pastry. All the breadcrumbs have gone and I have lots of dough, so pastry. So I'm just going to use my hands and form it into a ball. And it's not too dry because it's not cracking. There we go, we have our shortcrust pastry, homemade shortcrust pastry. I have rolled 2 rows of sausage meat, and I'm now going to clean my hands to avoid cross-contamination. I'm now going to roll my shortcrust pastry. I need to use the flour dredger and sprinkle lightly, dusting of plain flour, and then this stops the pastry from sticking onto the surface. I'm also going to lightly dust my rolling pin and roll. Be careful, you don't want to squish it, you need to be gentle, light pressure. I like to rotate it to make sure it's not sticking. So I'm going to take a blunt knife and then try to make a nice clean rectangle. So I'm just going to place the waste to one side. And now I have my A4 piece of paper. I'm going to divide it into 2. And then I'm going to place my sausage meat down the centre. Once I've handled the sausage meat, I've just cleaned my hands again. Remember, we want to avoid cross-contamination when using raw meat. So my hands are clean again, and I'm now going to use my pastry brush and dip it into some cold water, and I'm just going to paint the water onto the edge. You don't want to drench the pastry, just a light coating of water. And then I'm going to lift one edge and be careful not to break the pastry. Fold it over. So here are the sausage rolls, 25 minutes in a preheated oven. Lovely and golden because of the egg glaze.